Hey, what's up? Welcome back, audience. Cheers. Hope you're doing good. In this video, I want to talk about what I came across to be two different facets of alchemy, what I call general alchemy and specific alchemy. And in this video, I want to talk about the importance of being in between those, because I can say the two errors that people make that perpetuate the same pattern and say that it seems to be like there's no end to it. So one idea is this, like the shadow work, right? And so people are focusing on basically themselves. It's like, oh, it's my stuff and I gotta work on myself. Okay. And then sure enough, they get into this trap and it's never ending, working on myself trap. Then another group of people, they go say, screw myself. Screw myself. Basically, that's not important. Let's just go into complete and total surrender and devotion. And let's just live there kind of thing. And that doesn't work either because life happens. Things happens. You do have soul desires. You can't just sit in one place and just watch everything go by and be sort of like, spaced out and happy for no reason. That's not life either. There's something in between. You do need this type of level of devotion of complete and total stillness. You have to encounter that basis of reality. But that is almost becomes like a tool to be able to erase the old, right? The pattern may be appearing, creating a certain type of state inside you, and now what you're going to do it if you have capacity for that devotion and surrender, you'll be able to connect those two dots. And this idea is to connect that feeling, and it's usually about you can call it passion, but it may be not positive passion, maybe anger, maybe lust, maybe but anyway, that type of passion on the things that you don't want, like maybe even getting into fights and conflicts and things like that, and finding yourself in the fights and conflicts. Like, why? It's because there is still this passion, your fire, that has been attributed to that negative event. And this is why we end up in the same patterns. So the idea is to bring that pattern up and what I call zero it out to complete stillness until that event in your imagination, in this case, is no longer creating any kind of passionate flavor, whether it's lust, whether it's anger, or any of these dark passions. Until there is no passion about that event, that scenario, or that situation. And the way you can dissolve all that passion in only when it can touch that ultimate background of everything, ultimate void, that devotion, that stillness. It has to touch that. Understand? And when it touches that anger, that lust, that it dissolves into stillness. Now, the same event, same scenario, does not have that anymore. To you, it becomes sort of almost like meaningless because, okay, there's just like pictures. Before it would like triggering you, and it's like, oh my God, I don't want to look at it. This is the last thing that I want. But that's idea. That's the idea that you gotta. I'm just saying something to you that is kind of real and no bullshit. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm just fascinated with this consciousness navigation system, if you will, this operating system, and how it all works, and and how it all works. It has to work. Results have to happen. And so most people are not really going into this negativity and just keep on going on the positive, positive, positive. But the idea is the positive is going to happen automatically when there's no negative, because then there's not going to be sort of internal battle. There's a part of you that's creating a negative reality. There's another part of you that's trying to create a positive, and it's still a conflict. Still not it. But when you can bring that pattern, and sometimes you can observe what that is, and how it all relates, and sometimes you can have, it's like, well, there's quite a few patterns that happen in my life that I don't want, and they all have something in common, and then you can find that like root scenario or event that would really, really, uh, you know, anger you, or um, you know, cause you like uh, rush of lust or whatever, right? Like, and then you zero it out, and you take what something people call take your power back. And what is the power? Passion. When that event is no longer creates any kind of passion in you, and to you it's just like a background, you know, and it can be done, and it should be done, and but you got to be willing to look at that thing that would create these negative feelings and zero them out. That's the first phase that you got to do it. Once you take that power back, once it's no longer trapped into that old memory, that past memory, all chirological past is negative, of course. Now, because you are in that stillness in the now you can create the future event. And the future is always positive in the now. Then you can direct the passion that you just retrieved on a thing that you do want to experience, and that it almost has to happen naturally, like you just bring that passion and let that real passion, no longer angry passion, no longer lustful passion, the real clean blissful passion, and you just have to nudge it, and it already has everything packed in it. It's like what you want to create, and you can imagine that, and that usually, if you imagine from bliss, that usually has all sorts of very beautiful feelings, emotions, and visuals and patterns, like like that. Poof. And that's it. And now you took the old bubble, old memory bubble, you recycled it, and you created the new memory bubble. You see, now with no conflict, you've done it, what I call a specific alchemy. Because you can do general alchemy, and it's like every day there's this like general tone of energies, and you can keep alchemizing that, and that's great for um okay, I'm not gonna uh, extend this view too much and say something which is true, but I just don't want to mention it in this case. But that general alchemy is super important. However, it's not going to change your life unless you do a specific type of alchemy about the specific distortions that you have, you personally have. The general alchemy is going to make changes, but it may not change anything about your life. So That's why you got to pull those memories that you don't want to look at, zero it out. And of course, if you are rooted in that stillness and you know what it means to move to that stillness, to that quietness or whatever, right? Like that real quietness, not just artificial one that's sort of in the back of everything. And if you know, then you can take whatever feeling and to zero it out. You see? You could make that even more passionate, but you don't do this. You don't do this because that type of passion is not clean passion. You don't want that type of passion in your life. This is why, like, if you have something in your uh, consciousness that is like hasn't been yet alchemized, that memory bubble hasn't been alchemized, and that memory bubble is about passion, about conflict with people, whatever. And sometimes you just attract conflict, right? And you don't know, like why don't I end up just being in the conflict and angry with somebody? It is because there's a part of you that sort of like gets a reward from it, you see. So that's how to play with these memory bubbles. You take them, but you got to alchemize them. You can't just mess around with them. And this is why you got to have that capacity to that complete zero point. Then you can do it. If you have not rooted yourself in that complete devotion, complete surrender, and you don't know what this is, then playing with those things are not going to help you. You got to be able to zero it out. You got to be able to start with a very, very negative emotion or feeling inside of you and end it in a complete peace. If you can do that, then you can do that. There's no reaction to it. Like, it really is, I can tell you, it's like you can imagine it as just pixels just moving, and there's like, yeah, I remember that, like, really triggered me. But after the process, you just look at it like, fuck, this is just like a pound. It's not really important. And this way you truly say no to what you don't want, but you do it with your soul, with that stillness. That peace says no, but it's not looking away from it. You're looking at that thing, having to dissolve all the feelings about it. You have no feelings about it anymore, just stillness. That event is still there. That's how you said no to this. Now you flip it on the other side and you say yes to something with passion that you do want. And that's pretty much it. That's all you need to do. I'm just telling you something that is true, and I don't see a lot of people are talking about this. A lot of people are talking about one thing. It's just like, just be in this peace and just be in the peace. Other people doing shadow work, but nobody's really telling you that, like, that has to be in between. That just like that peace and that stillness, that you discover your essence. Okay, that's great, that's wonderful, but that's like, you're still here to fulfill your desires. You're still here to dissolve those old things and create the new ones. Most people are in this position in life. So because look, you can not do it, right? You can not do it, but you can say, well, that's okay as everything as it is. It's not really okay everything as it is, because you're here to change from the something that is disorderly to something that is orderly. Every single memory, every single desire that you have, you're here to do that. But yes, by discovering that ultimate peace and that bliss, you could say, well, it doesn't matter. You can just, um, you know, okay, if I end up being in the event where I'm in the conflict, that's all right, right? Like maybe right now I like, maybe I get off on the fact that I'm in the conflict and stuff like that, or that you end up in a situation that is kind of um, in a sort of lustful situation, and it's like, well, that's all right. Like I'll just engage in lust. You see, this is what really would end up if you just let everything be as it is. It wouldn't matter to you, right? Like is this side, dark side, light side, wouldn't matter to you. And this is why it's so important to, you don't leave everything as it is. You start playing the game once you discover that. And people say that, like, well, once you discover that, that's it. And I don't see that happening. I don't know how um, that can possibly happen. And this is why probably you see these people who kind of touch that, but they haven't really, you know, really grown. You know what I'm trying to say? They still kind of fucked up, but they're okay with it. Um, and they consider themselves like, not bothered by that part. But I'm not sure that that's where you need to stay. Well, I'm sure I'm certainly not staying. I'm certainly, by discovering this, um, um I'm, if these, and especially if you go kind of deep, if these thoughts start coming in, and then you can say, all right, okay, let's look at it, and you can do that. um the closest thing to it what I've seen was Neville Goddard's law of revision, as he called it. That's the closest thing that I can see to it, but I'm just talking from the alchemical perspective, and I call it specific alchemy. I don't have a better term for it, but I'm sure that you can do a specific alchemy. You see, like this idea that once you discover the root of all fear and everything, and then everything's supposed to be sort of like over. Not so. You discover it, that's great, but it's not over. Now you got to, now you have a tool to handle each of the distortions that you have, and to convert them into gems. And you use it as a tool. Life's still going. But now you're in a position when the life brings you that same pattern, it's like, okay, that's this pattern that, like, okay. Now you can end it. Now you can flip it around. And if there's another pattern comes along that you don't like it, you can end that pattern too. That's what this gives you, an opportunity to actually start playing the game that's supposed to be played. That's the way I see it. And it's a very powerful tool. I mean, you can play with reality as the way it's supposed to be played without doing any kind of nonsense, funky ass magic nonsense. This is how it's supposed to be played. And yes, in a way, like I said, ultimately, the goal of alchemy to be in a perfect relationship with everything and everybody, the way they are, and you have in a perfect relationship. Does you see what I'm trying to say? Like, you say no to what needs to be said no to. You say yes to what needs to be said yes to. No, you say with compassion and peace. Yes, you say with passion and excitement. And that is how it is already in your soul. There's no thinking going on. It's like, oh, I have to take this, and now you already have alchemized it. And this is how what you are, or who you are, or what you are, that will determine everything else. It's not what you think, it's not what you do, it's none of these things. It's what you are. That's what's going to create what's going to be created, you see. And it really is that simple. I mean, discovering that 0 point may be adventurous, but once you do, you use it. You see, like, it's very simple. um, if you really want to rid of addictions, like really these are just addictions. When you're passionate about something that is kind of dysfunctional, it's an addiction. You got to take that passion from it and put it into something what you want, and you do that through the zeroing it out. Okay, I'm not saying anything complex, right? Like it's just very simple. It's like if you got some repeating thoughts in your mind that's kind of bothering you, negative thoughts, go directly to this ultimate, the worst case scenario that these negative thoughts may be suggesting that you don't want to look at. And look at it and let these feelings go up and trust that you're going to zero them out. And you stay with it until it's just complete non reaction stillness in response to that picture in your imagination. It is done. And then you go into another side and say, look, what do you really want? And just let all of that passion that you took from that, just let it pour into this thing that you want. The passion, the emotion, everything, and something which you do want. And just like feel and live as much as possible into that. And that's it, and you've done it. You've changed it. Because now if the event still happens, and sometimes it happens, depends on which time cycle you're at, it happens or whatever, but it's just like, all right, I guess, it's all right. And you're not having any reaction to it. All right, it's all good. And you continue on what you're passionate about. And that shit that is really was there just for you to alchemize, it's just no longer bothering you. It's just like you took all the energy from it. And that's genius of how consciousness works. Okay, guys. And this is a game. And then if these negative thoughts are no longer popping up, then you're clean for that time. Then you can enjoy that peace and that bliss. If they keep coming up, it's like, okay, where is that root? All right, find it. Boom, choom, poof. And this is how it really eventually these negative thoughts will stop. And the more like what I call like all motivation is out of fear and all inspiration is out of love. And so then you will be able to be inspired by these impulses and thoughts that goes like, oh, that's so exciting. Oh, I'm going to do this. And so that's how your life is becoming more that, and that negative nonsense that's running in the background. It's more like your soul's already feeding you all the positive stuff, and it's not feeding you negative because you already alchemized those negative things. And if it will have any kind of negative, it will show it to you and you'll know what to do with it. And this is how you use your consciousness, really. And then eventually you can get to the point where you're just, like I said, in a complete perfect relationship with everything and everybody. You will be like sort of like living in your own reality with other people who are also living in your reality, and that's kind of awesome because you don't have any kind of relation like direct and personal relationship with somebody who's kind of living in the dark, except because if you alchemize it, that doesn't really touch you anymore. And that when you live in that type of complete and relationship with all the things that are here from the worst to the best, that is what is the best contribution to stimulate the evolution on the collective level. It is your personal awesomeness of life is if you have alchemized all of these gems that you had to alchemize, and they keep on generating awesome stuff now. And this is true success, you see. It's there's no success until it's in your soul. Because you can have like a mind success and a body success, but if your soul is still kind of negative, It's just gonna just everything's gonna disappear. It's gonna be temporary, and you're gonna keep on like chasing it and stuff like that. No, change the soul level, and it will completely. I mean, it will continuously generate the reality that you do want without you even trying, because it's already everything's done. Can't help but have these types of ideas, these thoughts. It's like, you see what I'm trying to say. So there you go. That is like a more realistic way of living life, fully engaged in life, and uh, whatever's going on, being like a normal quote unquote human being, and not a weirdo, sweeping the ashram floor like Terence McKenna said, or like a monk, or some other nonsense uh, coping mechanism. But you're just like a person very engaged in life, but just knocking out of the park for real. And like nobody can stop you. What they gonna do? You just generating so much value that um they can eat your shit, man. Your waste product becomes their highest achievement. Anyway, guys, I'll speak to you in the next one. Peace.